Some of the states have plateaued on their injections. Some have fallen back. They're not doing as many as they were before. And they're saying that they're not seeing people come out. Approximately 30% of the people in the US say that they probably won't get uh, vaccinated. They aren't, uh, they aren't committed to it. They think that this may not be good for them. They think it isn't going to work, or they have some other objection to it. Uh, that's their choice. As a country, we can't mandate that they do that. Uh, there was a thing this morning in the press that they want the military to mandate that they have to take the vaccine because upwards almost to 50% of the people currently in the military have said that they probably won't get their shots. Uh, they're younger, uh, and that may work for them. I know a whole lot of people in El Paso that would really like to have that vaccine here. Um, every time they open up and say we're getting vaccine, make sure you're on the list. They are inundated. Uh, 3, 4, 5 times the number of people will sign up than they have for the doses. Some of the states are saying that the reason they're slowing down is they're working with underserved neighborhoods, and they're not doing those at the super sites. They're doing those in neighborhoods and clinics and with mobile clinics to get into places where people aren't getting out. And that's, I think that's a good thing. They deserve to be serviced as well. AstraZeneca was going to come onto the list of approved vaccines, but things didn't go well. This is like knowing that you're going to have an ISO audit and you leave all your audit materials at home. Uh, they came up with data that they passed on to the FDA for their review, and the data was out of date. They hadn't gone back and revised or reviewed the data, and it was out of date. So it was rejected on first approach. They say they'll fix the data. They'll have it fixed by the end of the week, and they'll resubmit the first of next week. If AstraZeneca comes on, they probably won't see many sales here in the U.S. Because the other three are already here and have fairly large contracts. But what will happen is, and this is in the works right now, President Biden has said that they're going to take millions of doses of the AstraZeneca, and they're going to pass that along to Canada and to Mexico. Um, I had a conversation with a friend of mine in Vancouver, British Columbia. She had a birthday, and I was talking to her about her birthday, and she mentioned that her dad had got his first shot, and that she was looking forward to him getting his second shot in 4 months. And I was somewhat taken aback. 4 months, that doesn't sound right. But in Canada, what they've decided is they're giving as many first shots as possible, because with the first shot, it reduces the chance of going to the hospital with the virus by somewhere between 60 and 70%. So if they can do that, then that takes the stress off of their emergency rooms and their hospitals. And then they'll have to wait for the 4 months to get their second shot. Biden is sending in millions of doses extra to see if he can't speed that process up. China and Russia are selling their vaccines, and their vaccines are currently being distributed in Mexico. And the distribution is slower in the US and in Canada, from the point of view that we have our approvals, but they're getting them out. And the speed that Biden had said he'd have 100 million people vaccinated in the first 100 days. and it took them, I think, 54 or 55 days to hit the 100 million. They're up over 150 million now. So in the big numbers, it's going pretty well. In some pockets, it's not going as well. Mexico is struggling. There are a number of people who have the money to do so are coming into the U.S. and getting their vaccines here. It's easier to do that than to wait. So the whole question around vaccines pushes the question of what about the variants? The variants that are out there right now, the UK variant is more virulent and it's spreading quickly in the US. It's at about 25 to 27% of the people who are coming down with the virus now are coming down with the UK variant. The South Africa variant is more resistant to the vaccines, and it's harder to get rid of it, but it's also it's harder to catch. The UK variant is easier to catch than the South Africa variant. But if you get the South Africa variant, the chances are greater that even your vaccine won't keep you from getting sick. It'll probably keep you out of the hospital. It won't be that bad, but you will be sick with it. For most of the vaccinated people, they won't get sick. They may catch the virus, but it's like a one-day head cold and you're done. Brazil and the Brazilian variant is just getting started. It's too soon to tell what's going to happen with that here. There's another one, the 20C New York, which actually evolved and grew out of New York, and it's very virulent, but it doesn't seem to be any stronger than the normal the normal disease is about the same as the New York variant. The vaccine will help against all of these. So if you haven't got your shots and you're sitting on the fence, don't sit on the fence. Go out and get vaccinated. My wife and I have both been vaccinated. We've been beyond our 2 weeks and all of that. And it's made a tremendous difference in our mental health. Don't know if it's made any difference in our physical health, but in our mental health, the anxiety is gone. So do yourself a favor and get out and get your shots. Breaking news, if you haven't heard somewhere else, this ship, if you don't recognize the land around it, that's Egypt. And this ship was caught in a dust storm. It's the evergreen ship Ever True. It's just shy of 400 meters long, which makes it longer than 3 football fields. It's 224,000 tons, which makes it a pretty slow-moving, heavy piece of metal. And what happened was they got caught in a dust storm and lost their way. They couldn't see the side of the channel in the Suez Canal, and they ground to a halt. They beached the bow of the ship in the side of the canal, and that has blocked traffic in the canal. They've got multiple tugboats, as you can see, trying to maneuver the ship and get it off the bank and get it back afloat so that it can finish its transit of the canal. Because of that, there are more than 100 ships currently being held up, and that was as of this morning. But this is one of the busiest waterways in the world. Ships coming out of the Indian Ocean come up through the Red Sea and into the Suez Canal, and then out of the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean. It saves them from having to go all the way around Africa or taking the longer route and going out through the straits and into the Pacific Ocean and then across the Pacific Ocean. So this ship has managed to block up that traffic. And so probably by the time they get it underway, and they're expecting to get it underway later today, there will probably be more than a couple of hundred ships waiting to go through. So if you have freight coming from that part of the world or going to that part of the world, it's going to be delayed. But that's not that's the breaking news is it's blocked, not that your shipments are going to be delayed, because one of the big supply chain failures we're experiencing right now is in global shipping. The wait times for ships to unload in major harbors worldwide are way up. Los Angeles and Long Beach, it's 10 to 18 days that the ships sit at anchor outside of the harbor, waiting for a dock to open up so they can come in and unload. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, the next slide we're going to talk about the shortage of containers. There's nothing to reload them with, and so then they have a choice of deadheading, which isn't a very good choice. The East Coast isn't as bad, but it's still backlogged. Some of what's happening on the East Coast goes back to the snowstorm that they had that inundated Houston Harbor and caused a lot of problems in containers moving in and moving out of Houston, and things got backlogged. All the refineries and plasticizers and different operations there in the Houston area, most of them were shut down. Several of them froze up, and because they shut down, it took a while to restart them. Because they froze up, they have to go through a whole series of extra protocols to get back online. So there's a lot of tumult right now in plastics and resins and the derivatives that go into the plastics that are made and moved out of Houston Harbor. The oil coming into Houston is also coming in. The ship oil is coming in slower, but with the pipelines and everything that they've got, that probably won't have an impact. It has an impact on a global level, but not here necessarily in the U.S. The demand for imports is still high. People are still buying a lot, and some of it is backlogged because they're with the checks that have been issued and the improvement in fiscal position for a lot of people with businesses starting to open up again. There's money around and people are buying imports. And so ships are coming out of China and other Asian ports destined for the US, but then they're being held up for 10 to 18 days before they can come in. And then they unload and the ships are empty. And then what do you do with the ship? Because you can deadhead it back across the Pacific Ocean, but that's very expensive and there's no income for doing that. If they carry empty containers, that's fine. They can mix their load, carry freight and empty containers. But the other problem that we have is that there's a container shortage. And this has turned into a crisis. I was talking to a gentleman in Hong Kong earlier this week, and he said that there are companies in the area around Hong Kong that are offering substantial amounts of money if you'll empty out a container and let them know, and they'll come and pick it up, and they'll reuse that container, but they'll pay you, and we're talking like $1,000 to empty a container and let them take it. And he says the price will probably go up because there's no capacity anywhere in the world to build more containers fast enough to make up for the shortage. So what's happening is companies are using the containers as storage units. They ordered material is coming in, it's being delivered, and they have the material, but their demand hasn't picked up yet. And so they're sitting there with inventory. They don't want to, their warehouses are reasonably full, and so they're just leaving it in the container as a storage unit. And this isn't just in the U.S. This is worldwide. So we're seeing this all over Europe. We're seeing it in Asia. We're seeing it in parts of Africa, South America. Now, Australia and New Zealand, they're feeling some of this only because they're smaller markets, and what they're seeing is the impact from the problems everywhere else, because New Zealand hasn't had a case of coronavirus in almost a year. So, and they've had very few cases. I think they're the lowest one on the list at this point. So their business has been going as normal, but now because they're part of the global economy, they're getting impacted because of the shortage of containers and because of the slowdown in shipping. So even if you're in New Zealand, you're still going to get impacted. Alibaba is scheduling containers and renting them to companies. So if you go on Alibaba's website, you can put in a bid for a container, and they will find a container to fill that bid, and they will charge you accordingly. So it's a variable. If you want the container right now, it's a much higher price. And if you want it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it's lower, but it's still higher than what the companies have been charging. So that's part of what's going on. Then the demurrage charges, the companies are trying to ratchet up demurrage charges, but many companies have contracts, and they say that in the contract, the demurrage charge is going to be, $25 or $30 a month, something along that line. And the companies are saying, wait, you can't, the shipping companies, the container companies are saying, we want to go up on the charges because you guys are holding on to our containers. But the companies that are holding on to them go, no, we have a contract, and here's our contracted price. So we're going to hold to the contract, which means they can have a 53-foot container full of material, and they're paying $25 or $30 a month to hold that container. That's a big part of the problem. So this isn't going to get resolved overnight. This is not something that's going to just all of a sudden go away. And I'm not here to tell you, if you've got a container, empty it out, get it back to the carriers. This is going to take some time because people are going to have to work through their inventory. There is a lot of different issues, a lot of moving parts to this one. So the container shortage is there, and it's going to be with us for a while. So if you're using containers, be aware, it may take you some time. Deadheading ships, if you can imagine, the truck companies don't like deadheading, say, from El Paso to Dallas to pick up a load in Dallas. They prefer to pick up a load here, go to Tucson or go to Phoenix and pick up a load there. It's easier than getting back to Dallas. But can you imagine taking a ship, like the Evergreen ship that we saw in the earlier slide, and just nothing on it, sailing it from Los Angeles back to Shanghai? That's a lot of cost. So it's not a good answer. The prices are going up for sea freight because of all of these different problems. And at the same time, the air freight costs are coming down because there hasn't been a whole lot of air freight going back and forth. people have been buying product, but they've been buying bulk product and moving it in containers across the ocean. But now people say, well, we need this stuff, and so they're flying it. Even the exercise bicycles with the video display and all of that to motivate you to get your exercise, they're actually flying those from China into the U.S. So that they can meet demand. The air freight charges for 250 kilograms is cheaper than shipping by sea. So 250 kilograms is about 520 pounds, something like that. So you can move a lot of different things cheaper by air for the time being. That may change, but right now, if you've got some relatively small products that you're trying to get, bring them by air. Now, here's some 50-50s. These are sort of the success and losses at the same time. The success of Internet of Things, 5G, and all of the electronics that we've all bought during the pandemic have created a huge demand for ICs. And so now we have a worldwide shortage of integrated circuits. And it's getting more and more difficult. Those of you who know Jorge Olmos, Jorge's been on a mission to find ICs anywhere in the world. And he's not alone. There are a whole lot of people out there that have a high level of anxiety because of the shortage of integrated circuits. Anything that you've got that has logic, anything that you've got that, if you've got an electronic Wi-Fi controlled thermostat or door lock or a bell camera or something of that nature, they all have integrated circuits in them. Every automobile has multiple integrated circuits in them. And so there's a huge amount of demand, and it's turning into a shortage. They're building more fabs. Fabs are what they call the fabricating plants where they make the circuits. Intel is building 2 more in Arizona. It's going to cost them somewhere around $20 billion. But it'll be late next year before they're ready to even start production. So the plants in Taiwan are booked solid, and the same is true in Singapore. So demand is still growing, but demand may level off simply because there isn't sufficient supply. So this is a 50-50. This is somewhat of a success and somewhat of a loss. Now, it's not all just this. I was talking to some folks in Europe who make bicycles, and one of their complaints is they're putting out component requests for quotes with their suppliers, and they're coming back with responses that they would be able to take the contract and have it fulfilled in 2023. Because their capacity for the next year to 2 years is pretty much booked up. So there were, with the pandemic, a lot of people decided that they were going to get in shape, and they went out and bought new bicycles. And so the bicycle industry saw an absolute dynamic growth in sales in the past year, but now the problem is that their supply chains were not able to ramp up. They weren't agile enough to come up to speed. And so what we have is we have a shortage of bicycles. And that's worldwide as well. That's not just one country. That's happening around the world. Some supply chain successes. The US vaccination process. I know some people say, well, this and that, but more than 30% of the adults have had at least one shot in the US. And we're moving quickly on that. Pepsi, Coke, Anheuser-Busch, and Corona have all rolled out new packaging solutions that will reduce plastic packaging waste. They're using plastic that they can form the bottles and they can form the tops. Corona has come out with a new paper that's not made from wood pulp, and it's biodegradable. You can just throw it in the garden and grow flowers on it in a short period of time. So all of these companies are working on reducing their packaging waste, and we need to continue to do that. If any of you had the opportunity to read Abe Ashkenazi's post last Friday, Abe is the guy in charge of ASCM. He was talking about the reduction in carbon because of the pandemic and the reduction in manufacturing. And we hit a level of carbon in the air that was comparable to what we would have seen in World War II. So it's gone that far. But the problem is, as soon as people see the pandemic is coming to an end, all of those things are going to rush back, and we have to decide now what we're going to do to keep the carbon emissions low, and what else can we do to make that happen. That brings us to our last PDM last week with Chuck Niemer. If you missed it, Deanna's posted a bunch of things out there. We've got some video that'll be out on YouTube channel as well. It was a really good PDM. This coming month, we're going to have Dr. Vieta talking again about lean. And so that, I think, will be another interesting meeting. There'll be more coming out from Deanna so that you'll be able to see that. If you have ideas of what you'd like to see, please pass them to us. You can do it in the chat box, or you can send it by email to me, and we'll put it on our agenda and see if we can't get it to you next month. Just a reminder that we're here, we're teaching classes. We've got inventory and purchasing management coming up next month, along with CPIM, which has been totally reconfigured, and CSCP in May, and planning demand and S&OP in May, and CPIM, the second part, in June. So if you're interested, let Deanna know, and we'll see you in class. Anyway, that's it for this week. Have a great week, stay safe, and get your shots.
Thank you, Chet.
Thank you,
Thanks
Chess.
for being here.
Thank you, likewise.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you.
See you, Chet.
Okay. Have a good week.
You too.
A better week.
Yeah, it's not a bad week, so.
Good.
but It's going. You too. Have a good week.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. So Deanna, will you be able to edit that down and get it out there?